Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the EzeeLinux show. This is version 18.22, recorded May the 13th, 2018. I'm Joe Collins, and in this show we are going to talk about Ubuntu 18.04. It's a follow-up. We've had a chance to play with it for a little while, and I have discovered some rather interesting things about the system, and we're going to ramble on about that for a little while. But before we get into that, I would like to say thank you very much to everybody who has clicked the subscribe button on this channel, because we crossed 50,000 subscribers a little while back. That's a huge number. For some reason or other, it was significant to me. If you think of a big sports arena, usually they are designed to seat 50 or 60,000 people. And think of one being full. That's the number of people around the world who find the content of these videos to be interesting enough to subscribe to, and I'm very humbled by that. During my adult life, I've moved around a lot, and I have lived in many towns that didn't have 50,000 people in them total. So that's amazing. Thank you very much. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. I want to get into maybe just a minute or two of talking about some observations on YouTube now that I have been doing this not only for 10 years, but actually have more than 50,000 subscribers. It should be interesting for those of you who aspire to YouTubeness. Maybe not. Okay, the subject at hand is Ubuntu 18.04, and we are looking at an installation of Ubuntu running on my machine that I'm recording this video. This is not a virtual machine. And I have been playing around with this, trying to do some interesting stuff and learning about the system. And what I have found is that this Ubuntu is very different from Ubuntu's from the past. And a lot of things have changed under the hood. I mean, a lot of things. I had mentioned that in an earlier video, but now I'm starting to come across that. So I'll show you a couple of things about that. First of all, I want to address some issues that people are having. First off, this is one that got me. I have had this running one way or another on one machine or another for quite some time now. And it has been very interesting to try and figure out Ubuntu's spin on the regular Gnome 3 desktop. See, because when you install this, you don't get a normal vanilla Gnome 3 desktop, and it's not a desktop that Ubuntu has done some modifications to. You get a completely different user experience. If you want to run a vanilla Gnome 3 desktop, then what you have to do is you have to install a package called Gnome Session. And once you do that, you can log out and log back in, and then you get a vanilla Gnome desktop. If you are using the Ubuntu desktop, which is the Ubuntu desktop experience, whatever they want to call it, certain things that you're used to in GNOME don't work, like installing plugins from the outside world. They don't work. And somebody said, well, yes, you can still install plugins. No, you can't. You have to do that. I've tried. Believe me, I installed the GNOME extension in Chrome and went to the page and tried to install the plugins. They just sit there and go, we're not going to work. So this is Ubuntu, the developers at Canonical, trying to kind of get a cap on the wild, wild west, which is the GNOME desktop. Very smart idea for enterprise desktops and to make things easy. In some cases, I have been critical of them going a little bit too far, because there are certain things about the desktop that aren't here. And also, there's some quirks. Now, one of them is the fact that when you're in the Activities menu here, I should be able to search for files. So I'm going to type in just the word toad. There, well, it worked that time. And now you see that it's finding some files that have Toad in them. Toad the Wet Sprocket songs, and then my recipe for Toad in the Hole right there. This does not work as soon as you install this. And if you go look online and you're trying to figure out, well, I just installed this and it's not finding anything in my file system, what people are telling you to do is install Tracker, which is a program that runs in the background for most GNOME installations that maintains a database of what's in your file system, and then you can search it. Well, that's not how this works. The way this works is it's using the locate database. So let's go ahead and open up that terminal, which we already opened up. I'd forgotten that I had him sitting here minimized. And let's talk a little bit about how that works. So in the settings over here, I have search turned on, and I even went so far as to go in here and make sure that we're searching all of the standard directories / folders, and then we have bookmarks on, and we also have a few things that I have added here. So all of this is on. It's still not working. I install Tracker, reboot the machine, log in, log out. Tracker's working. I check the daemon. It's happening. Nothing. It's like, no, it's still not doing it. And then it dawned on me that they're probably using the locate database. And if that's the case, then it won't be there immediately. So let's go ahead and get rid of htop here. And I have already done a search where I have listed the storage in the etc cron.daily database. And you see that there is this script right here, mlocate. And what this does is that once a day, usually in the morning, it will run and it scans all of the files that are in the file system and then puts them in a big database. And then you can use the locate command at the terminal to make that available to you so you can get into that database. So the point of that is speed. If you do, let's say, find, it will take it a while to search the whole database and spit out results. If you use the locate command, it's just reading that database, so it goes very quickly. So you're trading off accuracy for speed. So with the locate command, you can kind of fool it, because what happens is that since it only updates once a day, you could add a whole bunch of files that day and then later that night try and find it, and it's not showing up. But it works well enough to make for a quick file search, which is all the activity search is in the Gnome Desktop. So that's how they did it. That's how they did it. It doesn't have anything to do with Tracker. Tracker does do some really cool things with the Nautilus File Manager. It speeds up some processes and it makes some things available. So I went ahead and left it running. But if you want to install it, you can. If you don't want to install it, you don't have to. It makes no difference. It goes around that. And if you want to get the file search to start working, then all you have to do is issue this command up here, which is sudo update db. And that will manually update that database. Let's go ahead and do that right there. And it just went through and it read all the files on the system and added anything new to the database. That's what that does. And if you want to learn more about that, you can look up the locate command and also look up the mlocate program, which is actually what makes the locate command work these days, so you understand. So that's one of the first things I came across. I don't know whether I mentioned it already, but somebody said that, past videos here, if I'm repeating yourself, I'm sorry, this is like take 3 of this, is that plugins for the Gnome Desktop should work. They don't. Okay, you have to install Gnome Session. Yes, I did cover that. I just want to make sure I got through that. If you're going to be doing like a vanilla Gnome experience. And let's see, what else did I want to show you? Well, I was working on another idea here. I was interested to see how the Unity Desktop worked on Ubuntu 18.04, and it is in the repositories. And you can install it very easily on your machine by installing one package called Ubuntu-Unity-Desktop. That's the package. And it will go out and it will get the entire Unity Desktop and it will install it on Ubuntu 18.04. And then you can be so bold as to go and remove the Ubuntu Desktop and GNOME Shell. And when you do that, what you end up with is just like Ubuntu 16.04 with Unity, but you're running on an 18.04 base. The Unity Desktop is community maintained, which means that the developers for Ubuntu aren't messing with it. They're letting the community work on it. So if you like the Unity Desktop and you want to contribute to it, you can do that. Now, what I wanted to try and do was to install Unity natively on Ubuntu. Not start out with the Ubuntu Gnome Desktop experience and then add Unity and then try and remove the Gnome components. No, I wanted it to be completely clean. So I actually did this little experiment where what I did was I started out with a very base installation of Ubuntu. We're talking about just Ubuntu and no desktop and no display server and no desktop manager and nothing. We're just starting from total scratch, command line stuff, and then I would pull in the packages needed. And I actually got it to work. It was no big deal. Now, I'm kind of going around, I'm making things harder for myself doing that, but the idea is just to try and figure out what works and what doesn't, and what the Ubuntu Unity desktop package, which is called a meta package, which means it's just a package that calls on a bunch of other packages, what it actually pulls in. It does pull in the entire experience. But the one thing that happens is that it does not switch the network from the kind of the standard server setup. Like if you're running Ubuntu with no desktop, it doesn't automatically use Network Manager. And so it sets it up another way. And then what you have to do if you start out with a base in Ubuntu, or you have an Ubuntu server and then you want to add a desktop to it, you have to be able to switch that over. Well, in the past, that has not been an issue of any kind, because here is the lovely documentation for Network Manager on Ubuntu. And if you scan down through here, there is all kinds of tips and tricks and how to get this thing to do what it needs to do. And if you come down here under Issues, here's a script that you can modify this particular file, and now it will give control of the networking on your box to Network Manager, right? Guess what, gang? This doesn't work. Because in Ubuntu 18.04, they have gone from the original setup, which used IF up and IF down, to using something called NetPlan. And NetPlan stores what actual interface it's going to use in a YAML file in a completely different place. Fine. Okay. I cannot find anybody anywhere who has written something this clear how to change NetPlan to use Network Manager. Can't do it. So I couldn't get that part to work. And I was going to do this video. I was going to show you how I did it, because a couple of years ago I did a video about building my own Ubuntu. This was back in 14.04, and like putting Cinnamon Desktop on it and stuff like that. And people really dug those videos because I showed how you could basically treat Ubuntu like Arch Linux, but it's Ubuntu. And I thought that would kind of be a fun video, but I'm not going to do one because, number one, there's a bunch of really great tutorials that are already out there about putting the Unity desktop on if you want to. It's really not hard. I mean, it's like 4 commands. I mean, if you can copy and paste, you can do it. It's no big deal. So it's really not worth doing a video about. And the other reason I'm not going to do a video about it is because of the fact that Unity runs like crap on 18.04. It really doesn't work very well on 18.04. And it crashed on me like several times while I was experimenting with it, not just in virtual machines, but in hardware. Because I've kind of been poking at this, trying to just feel my way around the system to see, well, how does Unity integrate and all that stuff? And it just was horrid. I mean, Compiz kept locking up. It was the same deal that it was before, but worse. So the community, if you want Unity to run well on 18.04, those of you who are into it, you're going to have to step up and kind of patch this thing up a little bit. Also, it looks a little weird because look, like here is the file manager, and then it puts this window decoration on top because it's Compiz, and that's how it's dealing with client-side decorations. But other than that, if you're not going to ask it to do much, then it should be all right. Now, one of the weird things about it is that for some reason or other, when I installed it one time, like the shortcuts got messed up and things like that. It was really kind of strange. But it seems to be working fine in this virtual machine. Because like when I installed it, I couldn't switch around. And I just came across a couple of weird little things like that I had to deal with when I was learning my way around Unity. But anyway, if you want to play with it, you can. I would suggest that you just spin it up in a virtual machine and then install it. And the information on how to do it is available online. There's a good page. If I can find it, I'll put it in the description, and it kind of goes through how to do it. But I wouldn't do it on a production machine that I actually needed to use. If you want to play, there it is. So, yeah, this is a different animal. This is an entirely different kind of computing experience. It has worked out really well. I've been running this in one way, shape, or form probably since it first went into alpha, and Cindy's been using it constantly, and it has never, not once, crashed. And we're talking about the Gnome Desktop here, gang. It has never, not once, crashed. Not locked up. I haven't had to jump into a TTY to try and reboot the system or restart. It's just worked, which is pretty amazing. And a lot of it has changed under the hood. There's a lot of packages, little tools, things that you might be used to, ways of getting things done that have been modified. Hopefully the documentation will catch up and we'll be able to figure out what's going on so we can move forward. But for right now, it's kind of like learning a whole new deal. And the reason why I'm paying attention to this is, first of all, I'm a fan of Ubuntu, always have been. And even though we concentrate a great deal on Linux Mint on this channel, Linux Mint, the main version that most people use, guess what? It's based on Ubuntu. Linux Mint 19, which will come out a month or two from now, that is going to be based on 18.04. And so, therefore, it's kind of interesting to know what's going on in there. So, yeah, and the other thing I wanted to talk about, which we had discussed in past videos, was I was complaining a bit about the Qt integration. And what that means is you have Qt applications and you have GTK applications, and they don't render exactly the same way. And it kind of conflicts with dark themes. So if you wanted to install a nice dark theme, then what you might end up with is a problem. So what I wanted to show you here was, this is VirtualBox, and this is the one that's in the repositories, gang. It's like which one is it? Let me see. Go to About, and they always have this gobbledygook. No, 5.2.10 is what it is. This is the one that ships with Ubuntu, so I have installed it directly out of the repositories to make sure that it is going to be the most compatible version, and hopefully they will update it as time rolls on. So I didn't get this from a PPA, I didn't download a file, and you'll notice here that even though it is not following along with the ambience theme, you notice we have this is Fusion is what you're looking at, that at least the fonts scale so that it's the same size text, and then it is adding the decoration here, which sort of kind of blends it in with the rest of the ambience theme. And so therefore it's okay, I can deal with it. I would like to see better Qt integration in regular Ubuntu, and I was reading on the community forums, or the developers forums, where a lot of folks are talking about exactly how to do that. So it's not like they're completely ignoring it, it's just something they haven't gotten to. And as Qt has evolved away from the way GTK works, these two projects are actually diverging a little bit and going in different directions. It gets harder to get everything to get along, so there's some middleware that needs to be written to do that. Of course, I would love to be able to contribute that, but that's way above my pay grade. I know there's people out there working on it. And when you talk about these sorts of things, it can appear very negative to the developers, like, oh, you're just pissing all over my work. And I don't mean it to sound that way. We're just talking about things that need to happen. I know that Ubuntu Mate has better Qt integration than regular Ubuntu. And so, therefore, that's all I'm pointing out. It can be done. Why hasn't it been put in here? That's all I'm saying. So, it's a fun experience. And obviously, the Ubuntu team, the developers, are learning their way around the Gnome Desktop as well. and trying to figure out the best way. And even though this does maybe not come across as being the most polished or complete distribution of Ubuntu, it certainly is a very stable base, and they've come up with some very ingenious ways of doing some old tasks in a new way that hopefully contribute to making it more stable and more efficient. And for those of you who are looking at my HTOP here and going, that's using up 4 gigabytes of memory, wow! There's a lot of stuff running in the background. I got a virtual machine up. I'm doing screen capture, which is sucking a lot of CPU and GPU, and we're doing high-def video here, and so that's what you're seeing. Just want to point that out because somebody says that every time. You know, when it first boots up, it's GNOME. It takes up about a little less than a gig, maybe about 600 megabytes to run the basic desktop, and that's without Tracker running in the background, which I did install, and I already told you about that. So yeah, thus far, everything that my experience with Ubuntu 18.04 has been different, but mostly positive. Just learning my way around, figuring out how to do things, and the two that I have looked at are the Vanilla GNOME and the Mate desktops, and both of them have ran really well. Haven't had any major problems. I know that some folks out there have said that it doesn't work with their video cards. One of the things that's happened is that NVIDIA 304, that driver, has been dropped, and that's messing a lot of people up, I know. That's because the NVIDIA 304 drivers are rather old at this point, and upstream they are not being maintained. So that is a problem. Also, some people installed and had just some strange display issues. I know I haven't had a problem with that on my old junk. This old GeForce card uses NVIDIA 340. It's running now. It's recording. It's doing what it needs to do. I haven't had any problems with it. I have another machine that has Intel integrated graphics. No issues with graphics there or rendering in any way. And those are the two that are running Ubuntu. I did have one problem on a Dell machine, of a Dell Core Duo. There is a bug with UDEV that affects certain machines where UDEV basically goes crazy and it sits there and starts sucking up a bunch of resources, and it's basically sucking up 100% of the CPU, trying to parm all of the different devices that UDEV, and it doesn't get the information, so it just goes into a loop. That is a known published bug, and hopefully they'll fix it. It seems to be a recurring bug with UDEV and systemd. And so hopefully they will get that figured out and send down a patch if you have run into that. I have not attempted to install Ubuntu 18.04 on that machine. It might be fixed by the time you see this. I have absolutely no clue, but it is a bug. So those are a few things that I've had to deal with personally. And, I have started to take a little bit of a different attitude on systemd. There are some folks in the Linux community who absolutely hate systemd and rail against it at every chance that they get. I always took the position that it was plumbing and that I will just learn how to use it and move forward. But there are certain things about systemd that are proving to be kind of a pain. And when I was going through all this crap about trying to figure out how to get the indexing to work, I get off into these things and it's like it becomes a personal challenge. I ended up having to play with systemd a lot, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not even going to get off into that. But I'm wondering if systemd isn't what some of the naysayers say it is. Gargantuan, too big and too far reaching, and harder to work with than something like, Run It or even, Upstart, which I never understood. Why did we have to replace Upstart, which was the one that Canonical developed for Ubuntu? I liked Upstart. It seemed to do its job. I don't know. Never mind. I'm getting off into stuff that's just going to make people mad, and I need to stop talking about that. So, before I wrap up this video, at the very end here, I wanted to talk a little bit about YouTube, because it's really quite interesting, this journey that I've taken over the last 10 years with YouTube. Started out as a way to just share videos with friends who were into the stuff that I was into at the time, which was mainly a lot of old analog audio equipment, turntables, cassette decks, that sort of thing. And started doing a little bit more about computers and people like that. And then basically started doing mostly Linux stuff probably about 4 years ago now, because I found that while the audio was interesting to a lot of people, it wasn't really attracting a lot of attention and a lot of subscribers. It kind of just leveled off, and there it was, and there really wasn't the revenue from the YouTube channel to go out and buy new audio toys, and I didn't have enough subscribers at the time to make it interesting for people to send me stuff to talk about and do reviews. So I kind of backed off from it for a while, and then I started talking more about Linux because I had decided about that time that I was going to dump all commercial operating systems, and I wanted to chronicle my experiences with Linux. And those videos took off. And because those videos took off, it made me want to start the EzeeLinux project. And it has grown and changed over time. And now it's sort of I see EzeeLinux as an information clearinghouse, not so much as me trying to change the world and convert everybody over to Linux and hold their hand through the process, but trying more to disseminate information and give people a comfortable landing spot through Facebook, which is a huge community over there, and also here on YouTube and EzeeLinux.com. And no, it is not on every single social network on the planet, and I don't care. You know, if you don't use Facebook, that's fine. I understand that. A lot of people do, and a lot of people who are curious about Linux and curious about open source and freedom and privacy issues, they come there, and that's where they start. They're looking for information, and they look where they are, and a lot of people do use Facebook. So that's why we have this community on Facebook. You got to go where the people are, gang. I mean, I hear this all the time. Well, I don't like Google, and I don't like YouTube, and I don't like Facebook. And what we really ought to do is we ought to go start our own little site, and we ought to have our own social networking. Go ahead. Bye. See you later. Guess what? Nobody's going to find you. You have to go where the people are. So that's why we are where we are and doing what we're doing. And it seems to work out quite well. And this is it's just grown. It's all you. It's all people like you who watch the videos and contribute and ask questions and kind of push the thing forward. I'm not smart enough to have any sort of master plan. I gave up on that a long time ago. I don't do that anymore. I don't care. I'm just providing this little gateway for people who want to start into Linux, and just putting people together and trying to get them some information and point them in the right direction. And it's been very satisfying. It hasn't made me rich, but it certainly has made me rich in the sense that I feel like that I have learned a lot about the world and learned a lot about people, and it has changed my worldview to talk to so many people from around the world. It's amazing. I've talked to people in every part of the world through this, and I found out that we are more alike than we are different. And a lot of these conflicts over politics and religion and whatever, they're hyped up to the point where it divides people. It's done by the governments, it's done by the media. But if you just get people in the room, no matter where they come from, we can all find something to talk about. And now I'm off my little soapbox there. And it's just amazing because Linux is like that. It's developed by people all around the world. Another thing that I wanted to say before I wrap this lovely thing up here is for those of you who are watching these videos and you would like to follow in the footsteps, you would like to do this, be my guest, go right ahead. The more people that do this, the merrier. I don't consider anybody who's on YouTube to be competition at all. I think as far as the Linux community is concerned, we need to use every possible way of disseminating information to get the word out, because Linux does not have big ad campaigns. And so therefore, if we're going to attract more people to the community, the more people that use Linux, the better it will be. And we're talking about desktop Linux here. Linux has already taken over the rest of the world. It's in every other device. But if we want more people to be running it on their desktops, then we need to attract them. So the more people that do it, the merrier. I don't consider it to be competition. However, I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm going to tell you that this happened. This morning, I was going through the YouTube comments, and on one of my videos, somebody posted a thing that basically gave a points list of how I did everything wrong. And they said that I would, first of all, everything you showed could be done with 4 commands at a terminal. It took me 8 minutes to explain this. That was something that this person said. And basically all this other stuff. And, there's a bunch of videos like that on YouTube where people, the ones that don't even talk are the ones that get on my nerves. It's just music, really loud, annoying music. And then they have this high definition screen. You cannot see any of the text because the terminal is so tiny. And then they capture that and they throw it on YouTube. And boy, now we have a tutorial to show people how to use Linux. That is useless. And any kind of 8-minute video that rips through 4 terminal commands makes a lot of assumptions. And in my videos, I've always tried to explain what I do as I roll along, which is the reason why they're 20 and 30 minutes long. And anybody who seriously wants to learn something, they are going to take the time to listen. And you need to explain things slowly and basically if you want people to respond to what you're doing. It's not impressing people with how much you know. Because let me tell you something about Linux. You'll never know it all. Ever. You will never master this thing. It's huge. It is a community-driven project, and there are parts of the system that I don't know diddly squat about because I have had no reason to use it. And so therefore, don't make a whole lot of assumptions like, oh, I can show you how to do that in 4 minutes. You're especially when you're dealing with people that are brand new. They don't understand what you're talking about because they don't have the primer. They don't have the prime basics, first principles down. So you have to stop and explain that to them. And then over time, people start to get the hang of it and they start learning it. And then once they get those first principles in their head, they understand how the file system works. They can figure all this stuff. And then it looks easy to them. So yeah, it took me 30 minutes to explain something that this person said that they explained in 8 minutes. And also, if you want to start out on YouTube and you want to join the fun here, you don't go around pissing all over everybody else. You don't do that. It will not win you any friends. It won't do it. I do not, under any circumstances, post negative comments on anybody's videos on YouTube, ever. I just don't do it. And the reason why is because the comment section on YouTube provides enough mental abuse to begin with. I am certainly not going to feed that forward and bring more on myself. I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to get into an argument with anybody. I don't. And if you like the videos, great. If you want to leave a comment, that's great. If the comment is nasty, then I will probably just delete it. I'm not even going to get into it with you. And any content provider who has been doing this for some time, we just don't go around doing that because it's not cool. I mean, I see videos all the time that I disagree with, I think are idiotic, and I just move on. I don't dislike them. I don't add nasty comments. If I don't have something nice to say or I can't contribute positively to the conversation, then I don't say anything at all. So my response to the person who posted that was really quite interesting because I essentially said what I just explained to you, but in a much shorter form. And at the end of it, I said, if you post another pissy comment like this again, then, I told him, I said, you're not going to get very far in the YouTube community pissing all over everybody else's work. And if you post another comment like this again, number one, I will block you. And number two, I will do a video and tell everybody your name and how much of an ass you are. Now have a nice day. I wouldn't really do that, honestly. But they don't know that, do they? Scared the poor kid to death. So yeah, this is a fun thing to do. It's a lot of people watch these videos around the world. It's very cool, but at the same time, man, you have to have a thick skin. And I remember I used to comment a lot about the community itself and how the community interacted. And this is sort of a follow-up to the last video we did. I don't do that anymore. People will be people. Just put out positive. You put out as much positive as you can and kind of stay away from the negative and hope for the best. So that's what we're going to continue to do. Thank you for watching the video. Your feedback is always welcome. Be sure to give EzeeLinux a like on Facebook if you are there. Also, check out EzeeLinux at EzeeLinux.com, and the links will be in the description to the video. Also, check out freedompenguin.com for lots of really cool content about Linux. That is run by our friend Matt Hartley, who doesn't have negative things to say about his fellow YouTube people. And it's one of the things I respect about him. And he also provides a gateway for a lot of content providers to have their work gathered into one place. And that is freedompenguin.com. Do check it out if you can. We will do it again soon. I don't know when, and I don't know what we'll be talking about, but I'm sure it will be fun. So, once again, thank you for watching.